Some classes there?
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm also retired, and I got a master's in fine arts from from the University of Miami in '87, I think it was, or '78. No, it was '78.
You're dyslexic too.
Yeah, it was '78, and did this type of work for years, and then. We moved to Pocatello with my husband was a professor, and we moved to Pocatello, and at that time the economy kind of got caught up with us, and I had to get a real job. So I went to work for nonprofits, and then I went to work for the state of Idaho. And so I continued to do pottery, but just in the afternoons and the evenings and on weekends and stuff like that. And I shifted to functional work, and so it's been a long time. Cynthia made me dig this back up and start doing this again.
Made her.
Yeah, so I've been doing functional work, which has been somewhat satisfactory. It's been the reason I got into pottery to begin with, because I fell in love with functional pottery. But because of my mobility with my husband, I stuck with this type of work because I could do it anywhere. Do it in my backyard. I could have a small kiln. I could sawdust fire, and it just irritated the neighbors a little bit. But so I could do it anywhere. And we have a place here. We lived in Pocatello for many years, and we skied here as a family, and we had a place here, and so we continue to have a place here. But I now live in Boise, and I'm really getting back into pottery in earnest. So,
Yay.
yeah, I'm enjoying it. So anyway, what I want to do first is to orient you to what it is that what your options are for the next 2 days. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a sawdust firing with these pieces right away, so that hopefully by tomorrow you'll have an opportunity to see them taken out of the firing by tomorrow evening. You, if you choose to do sawdust firing, will put yours in tomorrow and probably not be able to get them back out for a couple of days, and have to make arrangements with Cynthia to come back and get them back out, because it'll take literally a couple days for the sawdust to fire
Or
out.
ship them.
Oh, actually going to be in town for a few days
Okay.
on work, so
Well,
Good.
well, and I come back and forth, so I can bring them back to you if you needed to. I'm Cynthia's mule.
Yeah.
The back of my car is full of clay right now from the water center.
good.
May I make an announcement for those that just arrived late? There's a cooler here with some ice water in it. Help yourself.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks very much. So there are two things that we're going to do. One, we're going to do a sawdust firing, which is the same technique that of surface decoration that is done for a primitive firing. It's just a little bit more reliable way of getting your work to be completed, because a primitive firing or a dung firing, sometimes things break because you don't have that much control over the temperature. But you have a little bit more control over the temperature when you do a sawdust firing, because you fired it previously before you put it in the sawdust. So in order for you to do a sawdust firing, you need to do some work today, complete it, and hopefully have it dry by this evening so we can fire it so that it can be loaded in the kiln tomorrow, unloaded from the bisque and loaded in the kiln tomorrow. In order for you to do a dung firing, you just need to finish it today, and then tomorrow afternoon we will fire it. It will go raw straight into the dung firing. And we've got dung and sawdust and everything out there right now.
But it's going raw in the sawdust firing too.
Pardon me?
But it's going raw into the sawdust firing
No,
too.
we're going to bisque that first.
Oh, we
that has
are.
to bisque
We're gonna
first. We got to
bisque.
get a bisque in. Hopefully we can get a bisque in tonight that we can unload.
Oh.
It doesn't have to go very high.
Okay.
It can be a pretty low bisque. These are fired at 012.
Okay.
And if we can't get that done between now and then, it will have to go in later. But that's why I want to show you how to do
We've got
sawdust.
sunlight today.
Yes, it's dry. I've checked the weather.
Yeah.
So what we'll want you to do is to work on some pieces and get them outside so that they can dry as quickly as possible.
So the dung firing is just one firing. Is that correct?
Yes, it's just one firing. I'm at the tail end of a cold, and I'm going to be coughing a lot. So one of the things I want you to understand, so was that clear? Do you understand what we're doing? Okay. One of the things that I want everybody to understand, and it may be something that you all some of you know completely, and it's like, this is really stupid, but I really want you to understand the nature of clay. And when I finally, and it was years into the clay, my throwing process and the clay process, before I really understood the true nature of clay. Sorry, I have drugs. I'll take them in a minute.
You need some water?
Yeah, I'll probably get me some water. That'll help. I knew this was going to happen. I really apologize.
It's a good thing we moved it up though. We were going to do this like,
Yeah,
I think we were going to do it Thursday, Friday or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was sick then, so
I'm so glad.
that
So-
worked out good.
Clay particles are flat. And they lay together like this, and what illustrates this best for me is when I take a couple of pieces of paper and dunk them in water, and then put them together, and how difficult they are to pull apart.
Yeah.
Don't pull them apart. Are you kidding? But give it a try.
I'm the last person I get to pull it apart.
Yeah. I watched.
The surface tension, did you want to try that?
No.
The surface tension that you get between that is really what's happening with the clay particles, because they're little flat particles like this, that when water is between them, they become very strong, all of them, because of that surface tension that's there. That's my phone. And the other thing is that's what makes the clay slips that we're going to be putting on the surface. That's what makes it possible for us to make them shiny. Because what I've done is and what the early man did is they found clay deposits that were of the finest particles, and I've ball milled the clay and siphoned off the finest particles. So you've got the smallest particles and they're flat, and so think of a roof, and you know how the roof is kind of like this, and normally the clay will stick together with a little bit of their edges sticking up. Well, you're going to burnish these and make them go down, which then will make them reflective. And so the bigger, heavier particles have fallen out. You've just got the nice, flat, floaty particles that are left in the clay slip. But when you add, and you need to add this clay slip when the clay is dry, like this one. This is a dry piece. Which, by the way, I stole some of your kids' clay to make those last night.
The kids' clay.
Yeah, it was a little ball back there. It says kids' clay.
Okay. It's probably a low fire clay then, I'm going to say.
Which?
I think.
Yeah, we're not going to do anything with it. But, so anyway, so you need to add the clay slips to dry wear. Well, that's what's tricky about this. So I'm going to put this in a bucket of water.
Normally you add slip to leather hard.
No, not if you want it to shine, because what happens,
okay.
so this was a leather hard piece that I put in water, and this is a completely dry piece, and we'll just leave it there for a while and we can see what happens.
I guess my question is, we normally don't add slip to a dry piece,
Normally,
right? In our regular
right,
routine.
yes, in your regular routine, if say for instance you wanted to put texture on, or you wanted to add color, like you had a dark red piece and you wanted to put a white slip on it so that it would show out, you would do it when it was leather hard, because then the likelihood that they'll dry at the same rate and not crack off is greater. Doesn't guarantee it, but it's greater. If you were to add a slip to a dry piece, the chances are that dry piece had already already shrunk, and its slip would start shrinking, and it would shrink and fall off. So, yes, that normally you would add it to.
And sometimes the dry piece absorbs the water, and then that creates uneven tension in the piece and cracking, just in the piece.
Yeah, that's
You know?
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing about so normally you would do that, and then normally there are people who glaze greenware, and they have to be very good at it, because anytime you add water to a dry piece, you begin to separate those particles. So when it's not doing it yet, but when you have a leather hard piece, it already has water molecules between each piece, and those water molecules say, "Leave me alone, I'm happy here." But when you have a dry piece, there are no water molecules between them, and there's actually a little space. So what happens is the water begins to infiltrate, and it doesn't infiltrate evenly, and it will then disintegrate. So this piece should be disintegrating shortly. And you can see, if you look in here, you can see the air bubbles that are coming up with this one. And there are virtually none coming out of that one. And the water is displacing the air between the particles. And you will see eventually this will be just a puddle of clay, and this will still be its form. So we are going to be working with green, dry, what we call dry dryware, that is going to be much more susceptible to, and we're going to be applying wet slips to it. So it makes it more fragile. So just be aware of that when you're working with your clay. That's very important. The other thing I'd like to share with any of you who do pottery is that the other thing about the clay particles is, so when you roll out clay and you get a nice slab, and then you pick it up and you bend it, you flip it over, and you end up with little finger marks there, and you go away finger marks. And if you were to leave it alone, and it would look fine, after it was already fired, you would see those finger marks back again. And that's because what you've done when you've picked it up is you've actually taken those clay particles and they've slipped a bit. And you may have mushed them back together, but once they're fired, they want to go back to where they were before. So anytime you want to have anytime you want to preserve the natural effects of clay when it's been under pressure, which you're doing when you're throwing, or you're doing when you're rolling, or you're doing when you're paddling it, is you need to make sure you don't touch it.
Which is hard to do.
Yes, and so I work with lots of cloths, so I roll out everything on a cloth, and I pick up the cloth and flip it. Or I roll it out on a cloth, and then I pick the cloth up and put it on a board, and put another board on top of it and flip it, so that I virtually don't touch it, because I like what clay looks like when it's under pressure. I don't like to see, doesn't look vital when it's had a lot of finger marks in it. Okay, so here's the juncture. I can demonstrate putting slip on it, or we can get going making stuff. And you can do it any way you want to, and you can make anything you want. Or I can, and then after you're done making and having things sitting out to dry, I can do, I'll do a demonstration of adding the slip to it. I'm thinking that's the better way to go. In the meantime, I'm going to load up sawdust too, right now, so we can get that going.
I think people might need a little advice on making things that are,
Yeah.
I don't know, thin enough and small enough to accomplish this in one day, I don't know.
Are we throwing things, or are we gonna do slab work?
You can throw. You can do anything you want. You literally can. If it's hand built's fine. I would prefer that you try to work smaller. These are pretty good size. It's just that if you make some things that are small, I can almost guarantee you they'll come out of the dung firing. If you make them relatively large, you might have some challenges getting them out of the dung firing. And so
just like some little pinch pots or something?
Yes, you can do pinch pots. I actually brought in Regardless of where you get with your baking your own pieces, I brought in a bunch of pieces that you could then you can burnish and add slip to, and you can put them in whatever you want to put into. This isn't so much about the clay forming process as it is about the surface application and the firing processes. Hope that's okay with everybody.
That's great.
So,
Takes the pressure off.
pardon me?
Pressure.
It takes the pressure
Yeah.
off.
Also, we're gonna
In
have
case
a
something we throw doesn't turn out.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, this is the terracotta. Looks good. From what I can tell. Someone just plugged it yesterday.
and some days
Who's someone?
Yeah. Oh, was it you? Yeah.
for me.
I was thinking
really-
Greg for a minute. Greg did some of the bottom ones.
Feel free to, if you want to throw some bowls. If you want to hand build, I can work with you if you've never done anything like this before. I can talk to you a little bit about pinch pots, although I'm not yet.
Are you gonna take us all out to start?
Pardon me?
I'd like to hear and see what you're doing more than doing it. I mean, more than throwing stuff like that.
Okay.
Or help you with the sawdust.
She's a great
yeah.
wheel thrower though if you want any tips.
Yeah.
I need lots of tips.
Yeah. And actually,
I think we'd like to see the pots from the show too. Larry said he missed the show, so.
we're not here tomorrow morning. I mean, the formal class isn't tomorrow morning, but I can be here tomorrow morning.
People can work.
And we can
tomorrow
do
morning.
anything you want to. I mean, I can start a hand-built piece. So that piece there that large piece is all hand-built.
This one is?
Yes.
Wow.
Except for the top.
All right, this bag of clay is fairly dry.
I threw the top on, but the rest of it's
This
hand-built.
one's probably softer.
Then I can
And-
show you how
And
I
we
do
have an
that.
extruder too if you'd like to use it.
So let's load the sawdust. I'll load the sawdust.
Okay. See how she does that too.
What?
I'm
wanna see the
interested in the
sawdust
slips
too.
and the firing and
Okay.
and all of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is starting to fall apart, guys.
I have plenty
That
of
was
stuff.
the one that was
Oh my
completely
goodness.
dry, right?
That was the one that completely dried.
That was clean.
There's the
This
green
clay
is
is not very
there's
soft.
dryware and there's
Definitely dried out
greenware.
pretty
Well,
good.
it can be greenware can be dry or it can be wet.
But
this
maybe
is
that's
leather
the
bar.
other where you want to try them so quick.
Look at
The
it.
clay
This
is
is
not very
really hard
soft.
and that was dry.
Yes,
Interesting.
it'll just crumble. It'll just be a heap of
That's
clay.
why you gotta fire something.
That's part of the reason you want to fire it, but that's what I want you to be aware of while you're doing burnishing these things.
These are dry.
Those are bone
What
dry.
are we gonna do
Oh,
on
So now is the point when you're gonna burnish them?
Yes, this is the point at which they would be. I would add the slips and burnish them.
Bone dry.
Bone dry. Do you burnish those?
Okay.
whatever?
Well, it's slip and then burnish. I'll show you.
No, that's
Okay.
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 So we just need to start on something.